give us a history lesson. Let's prepare, or let's pretend that there's a lot of people that are listening right now, and some may ask, like, why do I want to listen to a podcast about Wärtsilä or energy? And I'll tell you why. It's because one of the biggest focuses I have at DCAC this year is to try to connect the dots, right? I need everyone to understand. I think that we have a very siloed industry. The ecosystem is great. But let's pretend like there's an ecosystem that exists, and there's people that make spark plugs and brake pads and tires. What happens if they don't understand what each other does, right? What happens if they do? What happens if they understand the impact of brakes to tires? What happens if what happens if the tire guy knows that if I have a better tread, I could take less pressure off the brake? I have no idea, but this ecosystem is evolving. What we are, and I'm just level setting this before I unleash you guys, is if you go back 100 years ago to 1925, it's the birth of the automobile industry. I mean, we were making Model Ts till 27, so the automobile was so far away from becoming a mainstream product and a mainstream industry. And now we watch and we daily live by the impacts it's made to society. What we're talking about now with AI 100 years later will have a greater impact to humanity than both powered flight and the automobile, right? So we have to connect the dots because we need talent in this space. I have to imagine Wärtsilä is struggling to find people that could go do the services and the implementations of these big programs that you guys have, right? You may even have problems on labor on the supply chain side or on the factory side alone, right? But the existential threat to this industry that you are solving for is power. The existential threat to this industry that's above that is people. We don't have enough talent to build, own, and operate these facilities fast enough. All the way to the supply chain through every element of the OFCI or VMI strategy, all the way to the ways and the means and methods in which we deliver this stuff, all the way into the trades and the craftsmen and the tradesmen. So we have to connect the dots. So everyone that's listening, we're only listening to these things for one reason. Every time we talk and learn a little bit more about this industry, it opens up the aperture for a brand new opportunity for a new career. A new career means a new life. Most people aren't going to be working at the same company for their whole life. Those days are over. We're going to work 3-4 years here, 3-4 years there, maybe 2 years here, and we're going to keep evolving and growing, right? So you guys have been around for a long time, and I'm not saying you're the best kept secret, but there's a lot of people that know about Wärtsilä, but they don't know Wärtsilä. And I have some cool stuff here that I could go through from the talking points. And before I dig into those things, I want to hear from you guys. Like, who is Wärtsilä? When did it start? Why are you guys there? And why should everyone here pay attention to what you guys are doing now? Can you guys help me with that?
Absolutely. So I hope that by the time we get out of here, you're absolutely convinced that Wärtsilä engines are the best possible solution for data centers.
Right,
because, you know, all the talk is, do you have the lead times that we're looking for, right? The turbine lead times are out 5-7 years. In my opinion, just because our lead times are much, much better, and we're talking like 1 to 2 years for a factory slot, even if that wasn't the case that we're much better, I believe that Wärtsilä technology is far exceeds the applicability for a data center on-site power station. And we can get into the specifics of that.
Well, we will.
Yeah.
But why? Why do you say that?
Sure. So maybe if we start with the history of...
Yeah.
And actually, do you want to go on the history and then I'll get into the data
Or
center?
even your history, man. You don't have to give me a PhD on Wärtsilä, but like, why did you go there?
Yeah, so I've been in recip engines for 20 years, right?
Came from CAT, you said?
Yeah, I did. And also turbines with the CATs. I did a lot of interaction with renewables and battery storage and controls and switch gear, all the things that on-site power requires, that whole integrated system.
Yeah.
But a year or two ago, I was watching data centers say, we might want on-site power for a replacement to the grid or utility bridging, and they didn't do it, and all of a sudden last year, boom.
Tons of it.
Yeah. And then I said, for the last 10 years, I've been watching this company out of Finland named Wärtsilä. They make the best engine on the planet. It has all these things that Sean's willing to tell you about here today. I'm sure he will. And I'm like, this is prime time because they've only had utility-type customers in the past. Now they've got a behind-the-meter customer that needs utility-scale power.
And that demand is pent up and growing by the week right now.
Daily.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So you're in a good position. Keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. And so, Sean, bow your chest out. So the 10 to 20 megawatt kind of range,
That
right?
shirt's outdated, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's for simplicity reasons. Now, to be honest with you, I actually designed this myself. My girlfriend tells me it's the ugliest thing that she's ever seen in her life, but it actually works for me during the conferences because I just stand in the middle of a room like this.
It's the way to do it. That's why I look, black T-shirts with something subtle on there is all I do, too, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I'm not trying to make a fashion statement at work. This is what I'm about. That's what you're about, so I can respect that, right? So
It's a good way to sort of separate the different types of engines by cutting it down the line of high speed and medium speed. On the turbine side, there's aeroderivatives and there's industrial aeroderivatives, meaning that they're used, can be used for aeroplanes, whereas industrial turbines are specifically for a power purpose. So, like I said before, I believe that the medium speed reciprocating engines in general, not necessarily from Wärtsilä, are the best possible technology for data center projects. And the reason across the board is flexibility. So if you look at maybe the most attractive feature of a Wärtsilä engine or just medium speed reciprocating engines in general is fuel efficiency. You can literally save tens of millions of dollars every single year just on fuel savings.
on recip over turbine based on how loaded it is or what the temperatures
20
are.
to 30% delta in fuel economy, fuel efficiency,
is
miles
that
per gallon.
At full base load, at low load? I mean, what are we talking about? When they're both running at the top or peak efficiency, or is it still 35%?
Yeah, so and I'll just interrupt for a
No,
second.
you're
So you something called heat rate.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people out there know, but it's kind of fuel efficiency. So it may take 7,000 BTUs of fuel to make a kilowatt with an engine of ours, but it might take 9,500 to make it with a turbine. So that's about a 20-30%
Understood.
difference, so 20-30% cost. And if
So
you-
we're going recip versus turbine right here with
Yeah,
your math.
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
That's it. And, you know, if a turbine guy was sitting here today, he would say, well, in actual fact, if we were to utilize what's known as a combined cycle design, which, without going into the specifics of it, basically combines a gas turbine with a steam turbine and has a heat recovery steam generator in between, which is what they're doing on the gigawatt plus projects, then they would actually be able to achieve a fuel efficiency that's even better than Wärtsilä. But the problem there is that technology and that design is absolutely incapable of handling any sort of variation in load. And as you know very well, there is a huge amount of variation in the load coming from an AI data center, particularly in
the
LLM,
swing
right?
load, yeah.
So if you install combined cycle, you're going to get a lot of base load, but you're not going to be able to follow at all. And you can't simply put batteries in because you have so many batteries to match the size of an individual unit of combined cycle that it's not going to be economically feasible. Therefore, you have to use engines on top of the turbines, and you've lost all the advantage of getting the turbines in the first place.
So the recips will absorb the shift swings that take place from an AI load demand?
I wouldn't use the word absorb because that's usually used for batteries, but basically you're correct.
Well, that's what
yeah.
you're using them for, unless you're using like a supercapacitor or a super.
Yeah, it's more following that load. So as it increases, decreases, the engines are able to do that in conjunction with batteries. I'm not suggesting that the batteries aren't required. They absolutely are.
So what was I mean, it went from maritime. Wärtsilä went maritime, and obviously it sounds like maybe they made some engines for airplanes or some shit too. When did it start focusing on building utility grade engines? And did Wärtsilä get into turbines as well?
No, never
Okay.
been into turbines. It's
How
a
old
good
is that
question.
company, by the way? Wärtsilä been around?
1878, I want to say.
I think it was before that. It started with a sawmill. It's 190 years old. It started
So
with
it's
a
just getting-
sawmill in
just getting
Finland.
started then,
Yeah,
huh?
just getting started.
190 years
Yeah.
old. All right, cool. So you guys have been around.
Yeah.
So when you got into recips, though, like when did the focus go on just making bigger engines versus getting into is it based on efficiency is what keeps them on recip side? Is that why they don't get into the turbine side?
Well, it's a totally different technology, right? So either you specialize in one or you specialize in the other. And to give you some stats, you know, we have 80,000 megawatts worldwide. and we have 6,000 in the US. And I think you were going to mention it's one of the most successful years last year.
Yeah. So over a gigawatt already this year going in sales to data centers and utilities. So
What percentage is behind the meter programs versus utility now?
that's a good question. I had to get back to you, but we're in 35 states with plants, but about 80 plants in the U.S. A lot of them are over 100 megawatts. Maybe 30, 40 of them are over 100, 200 megawatts. And just here in Austin, the area, you familiar with LCRA?
Of course.
They just lit up their first one in a good way. They started up the first 190 megawatt. They've got two 190s, so 380 total down below Austin. It's going to push power into the grid here locally. So we're seeing a lot of utilities ask for larger and larger and larger plants. Why? Because of the flexibility. You're seeing more and more solar and wind on the grid, and you need to be flexible to power up when those renewables power down for whatever reason. Yeah.
All right, man, so much to talk about, especially when it comes to renewables.
Yeah.
We got some time here to chip away at things, but I want to get to the stepping stone to nuclear as well. If you guys think but maybe what I'll do is I'll stop interrupting you because I'm fascinated about your shit. But why don't you, natural gas, we've never seen more people learn so fast in one space about natural gas and recips as we have in the last 2 years, 18 months maybe in this industry is when I really saw the turning point. When did you guys see a big shift where people were starting to pay more attention to you in data centers?
So almost exclusively the focus up until today has been utility projects.
Yeah.
And I would say around a year and a bit ago, I started suggesting to management that actually we should be focusing on data centers because I saw on LinkedIn in particular all of the traffic that was coming my way regarding data centers. And I saw, big megawatt numbers. So I would say, around a year and a half ago, that's when it happened. I'd like to take this opportunity to apologise for the people out there that have messaged me on LinkedIn and I haven't got back to them because there are thousands coming my way.
Good.
It's ridiculous.
That's good.
So it's been hard to actually get back to them all. But huge interest in the Wärtsilä engines for sure. Yeah.
It's a bigger block. That's the most appealing thing to us.
Yeah,
right?
it's education, right? The ones you mentioned, they've been out there in the market for a while, in the data center market. But, going back to what I said earlier, they're starting to look to the utilities. What were they doing, right? And you won't see those in the utilities. You see the Wärtsilä, you see turbines, and then all of a sudden the data centers are starting to say, well, these bigger blocks are what we need.
Well, what were some of the other unique challenges that you saw, right? It sounds like you saw... you started reading some tea leaves, and you said, hey, man, I could tell you right now, I could point and cite reports that I've read from Goldman to RBC that talks about the number, just the massive volume. So if you're good for 1 gig, cool. We'll do another 27 gigs between now and, it used to be 2030, now it's 2028, they're saying, right? But that's not all engine. That's just natural gas, recips and turbines, right? That's it.
Yeah, I think we're at a pivot point right now. Sean and I were just talking on the way over here, things that are going on out there where customers are out there getting ready to just pull the trigger, right, based on maybe not necessarily they know where their engines or turbines or whatever, where they're going.
Where they're going to go.
They just know they need them.
Yeah,
exactly. They just know they need them.
So people are just paying for production slots right now for their deposits. We have a client that we're working with that's putting down deposits in Q3 of 27 right now.
Yeah. But that's the key thing that you were asking a minute ago. It's what's going on. It's speed to power, right? And it's not everybody knows it, but who can deliver? The questions we get are, what can you deliver to me in 2026, 27, 28?
Are there unique challenges along that line, though, that only Wärtsilä can answer or address, or is more positioned to do it better or faster?
Yeah, the lead times are far more competitive than compared to turbines. We're talking probably across the range, an average of about a year and a half to get the engines out of the factory. So on that basis alone, we're a pretty attractive prospect. But for 1,000 other reasons that we'll get into, I'm sure we're probably the best option out there.
Well, let's go. Let's get into it. What do you guys want us to know?
Well, my thing is, in March, Jensen Huang, they had the GTC conference out in California, and everybody came out of there saying, listen to this quote, "Power is and will be the limiting factor to your revenue." Yeah, well, and it is. And so it's a business case on our customer side. They used to pre-order switchgear. They would pre-order this, that, or the other. Now it's like, we've got to get our on-site power going because it's going to be our limiting factor, and the delivery times are going to keep us from turning power into tokens.
So let me add one more thing on top of that to drive more urgency for you. It's not just a function of a company's ability to make profit for their shareholders. From a national security perspective, all AI is a sponge of energy. All it does is require a ton of energy right now. Do you agree? It's just unlimited amount of energy. So now energy isn't just about the ability for one business to be successful. It's a national security threat. So you have us, right? You said you worked around this industry, and on the nuclear side, we had 100 reactors in this state. And now we don't have that many.
Right.
China commissioned 10 each year for the last 3 years, with the exception of last year where they commissioned 11. And they're also going to build 100 coal power plants this year. So we have to find a way to compete against other nations on energy and power, not just for the sake of efficiencies in economics, but we have to do it from a national security perspective. If we don't put this power online, and we don't put enough energy online to support the adoption rate of emerging technology, specifically driven from the surge of AI, we'll have a significant national security threat as well.
That's right.
So it's not just about businesses thriving, it's about national security. So people say the existential threat is energy and power, and I tell them that that's partly true. But what is the real problem with power? Is it regulation to where we can't put it online fast enough? Is it we can't source the materials fast enough? And if that's the case, then what is the problem? Is it labor?
Well,
Can we not? Why does it take so long to build a turbine? Is it labor? What are these delays? Power does have a delay, but it also is what delays power.
Yeah, well, there are cycles in the power industry. The last time there was one like this was maybe 20 years ago, right, where a big power push was asked for in the world. You can see it in the history. So our industry doesn't necessarily invest in production capabilities like, the guys who make, GPUs or
Sure.
or racks or whatever. So it's a little bit different, and it's a larger topic of conversation, I think, there. But I think
the demand of energy is forcing us to look at the most efficient forms of energy, and what we're finding is these natural gas engines are the best way to get there.
Power density.
Power density.
When you think about it, on your fingernail, you put some uranium in there that feeds a nuclear plant, you can power Austin, right?
Right.
The next best power dense technology is gas generation. So then, if you can't get nuclear today, which we're getting there, and I think, there's a lot of push towards that, but you can't have it today.
We'll never not have a need for what you're making right now. Yeah.
And like you've said many times in this, on the subs, in the nuclear subs, that's the technology that we should be using out there, and we'll get there. But until we do, the bridge to that is with the most power dense capability. I can put in 5 acres, I can give you 200 megawatts.
Yeah.
And you can't do that with solar.
Definitely can't. That. What's solar? Last I read, it was 5 acres per 1 megawatt solar.
Yeah.
15 acres
and
for wind?
I give you 200 megawatts in that footprint probably. So
having said that, some of these data centers are out in the middle of nowhere, right? And where they do have enough land, solar is a good solution for, to provide some of the power in conjunction with the likes of the Wärtsilä engines. Doesn't necessarily have to be Wärtsilä engines, but they work very, very well in conjunction with solar. And the reason is that they can start and stop and ramp down very, very quickly. Turbines can do the same thing, but what happens with the turbines is that they put a lot of stress on the design of the actual unit itself, and therefore the maintenance schedule is actually impacted, and that leads to additional costs. And these aren't small costs that we're talking about here. So from a technical perspective, the turbines can work in a similar way with solar to Wärtsilä engines, but there is going to be a significant financial impact. And that's why you see, as Scott mentioned before, we had our most successful year last year. We've had an even more successful year this year. And that's partly due to renewable penetration into the various grids, because the utilities are seeing that they can utilise our engines in ways that you can't utilise the turbines. And that translates into data centres because of their renewable energy targets. They need to use solar to a degree if they're going to meet those targets, and they need a technology that's going to work with that solar effectively and cost effectively.
I got you. So we'll keep going, unpackage that a little bit more. So what does a traditional model look like, and how do you see this industry shaping for data centers? All right. So what did you do when you were doing power plants? Were you building microgrids essentially? It sounds like batteries and solar.
I was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not sure if you're going to see as many microgrids on the operator side, right? So what do you see the solution being? It just bigger blocks and more of them for what you guys are doing? Or are you going to be trying to package Wärtsilä solutions along with other?
Yeah, I'll answer that. We actually are a battery energy storage company as well, right?
Okay.
So it's easy for us. We're one of the few, if not the only, company that makes large-scale utility power generation and energy storage. So
Can you believe that? Storage and engines.
Yeah. So
you
look at islands, for
What a
example.
company.
Curacao is a good example lately. They've got, most of the Caribbean islands are powered by Wärtsilä engines, first of all. But now they're starting to add batteries because of all the sun, and they can do this renewable to power gen balancing, right? And it's a reliability, sustainability story for them. And I think we're seeing the data centers do that. They're, all the big hyperscalers are contracting with renewable-based companies to help them move in that area, and they're all calling us now because I think, and this is kind of funny, I use it, I said they used to think gas was a 4-letter word. Now it's just a 3-letter word.
Yeah.
It works with what they're trying to do.
That's smart.
Balance. Yeah.
Well, what are you guys seeing? What do you see the industry moving, and what are you doing to prepare yourselves in Wärtsilä for that? Because you saw that there's more demand for power than the utility providers can give, and you saw the opportunity to create a secondary channel for clients. Data centers themselves became the direct client. And how do you come to a group like that and say, look, let us build a utility just for you on an island, right? How does that process work, and how has it been received in this industry?
This might be a good segue to what you were mentioning this morning about Caribbean islands.
Yeah. You want to start?
Sure. So obviously the majority of the projects that we're looking at are fully behind the meter, meaning that they're not connected to the grid at all. In the Caribbean, where we've been extremely successful, we're essentially working on a behind the meter. Technically it's on the grid, but it's such a small grid that Wärtsilä is basically the only generating entity. And therefore we have a lot of experience in not only microgrids, so utilising our batteries as well as the engines on these islands, but also not relying on other sources on the islands to provide reliable, available power, which is so important with the data centres, right?
So what are they doing? What are you doing for data centers? Are you doing the same thing like you do in the Caribbean? You're going to Texas and being like, we'll give you the same solution we did in the Caribbean?
We don't really package it in that sense. A lot of the time, as you're probably aware, for these on-site facilities, there's a certain amount of redundant engines that we're providing to ensure that the availability is
one
as
goes
high as
down
possible.
for maintenance. You still have it's a distributed redundant model.
The
right?
numbers behind
Yep.
your head there, the nines, right?
Yep.
That's what I call them, the nines guys we're always talking to. How many nines are we talking about? And
Right.
It begets what the plant design is going to look
A lot
like.
of people would be surprised to realize that the utility itself is at 99.9. That's it. There's only 3 nines.
And that's
Yeah.
what we try to compare ourselves to, because we are the utility in that case.
Right.
We're an off-grid solution alternative to the utility. So don't ask us to be 99.39,
Yeah.
because that's not what you're asking the utility to be. You're
Right.
still doing some of the things behind in the data center with UPSs, with other types of power solutions to increase those nines. But we can certainly provide a redundant solution to get to the nines that they're looking for.
I got you.
Yeah.
So let's shift back to the engines again. So, I mean, for a lot of people that don't understand the difference, and I'm not sure which one of you guys would be the best one to answer this, you guys entered the market, and I think one of you even here sitting with me felt like your biggest competitor was turbines, right? But you mentioned twice you beat the brakes off him on lead times. What are the lead times for a Wärtsilä engine? And what are the block sizes for Wärtsilä?
Sure. So our most competitive engine sizes are between, say, 10 and 23 megawatts. Obviously, that's not represented on the T-shirt, so apologies there. But
we're going to get you a red Sharpie.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll look into that in the technical department. But I hesitate to keep on mentioning the factory slot situation because that's an easy way out of it. You know what I mean? It's an easy thing to say that we have some available, the turbines don't. I want to focus on why it is that actually they should be looking at engines rather than turbines in the first place, right? And the story starts with flexibility, as I said before, but actually, maybe before I get onto the specifics of that, emissions. It's a thing that isn't mentioned nearly enough with these on-site power plants. I have people, as I said before, coming to me every single day, right? And they're talking about, how many megawatts can you give me? What's the fuel efficiency? All of this stuff. They never mention emissions. And emissions are so important because, as you know, they're looking to, the customers are looking to establish these data centers as quickly as possible. And one of the things on the critical path is air permits, right? Air permits are so important because you can't do anything on site until you have them. In most cases, not all cases.
Not all, but there are states where you can land engines.
Yeah,
because I've known because I'm waiting for the engine to land the day I get that permit.
Yes, so we take pride in ensuring that we provide our customers with the lowest possible emissions, and not only that, guaranteeing those levels. And that was one of the reasons why we were successful in our recent 282 megawatt contract for a data center in Ohio, was because they had full confidence in our ability
to get there
to guarantee. Well, actually, we're not getting the permit. We're offering certain emissions levels, and we're guaranteeing them, and that's associated with the liquidated damages as well. So we're going to be impacted in a big way if we're not.
Have you found that the permitting phase, which is a big factor for speed to market, has been one of the biggest drivers for you guys to be able to overcome? Is it more that? I mean, like, are you guys running your own?
It's the first step. It's always the first step of a development is we tend to push our customers to, let's talk to the emissions consultant. Let's find out what are the requirements at the local site, because what happens in Salt Lake isn't what happens in, West Texas, isn't what happens in Ohio. So we get the emissions requirements locally.
Yeah.
And then we design an after treatment, and we provide that to the SCRs, if you will, selective catalyst reduction.
So what are the tier levels for that? Like, how do people measure that? What is there a tier 1 through tier 4? Is there how many NOx, or like how much can you put in a 100? Like, what's the limit of how big of a block you could build before you start triggering things because of air permits?
If I oversimplify it, it would look like this. There's what's known as a minor source permit, and it's in this level, right? And then you've got a major source permit, and it's in here. And then you've got PSD, it's called, and that's above, right? Most of the data centers are in here before you get to PSD. And they've got certain limitations for certain gases at each level, right? And so what we tend to recommend to our customers is that we maximize the amount of megawatts that we put on the ground in the first stage to make sure that you get that permit as quickly as possible. So that would be that minor permit.
Which is quicker and easier to get that permit.
Because you're not really testing the thresholds of whatever you're allowed to.
The procedures in a state are easier to get to that. Yeah. And then when you go to the major source, then there's a little more paperwork to be done. A lot more.
Are you buying offsets at that stage?
That's more of a customer scope thing as to whether they do that or not. But let's say that, again, I don't want to get into too much detail here, but let's say it's 100 tons per year of certain pollutants, right, to stay under that major source threshold and stay in minor source. If you stay in the minor source, It depends on which state you're in. In Texas, you'll probably get it the next day. In any other state, it'll probably be like 6 months before you get that permit.
And yet
right?
they're on a study. It's going to take you forever.
There's more to do.
Yeah.
So 6 months you can't do anything, which is not too bad. 6 months is fine. It's when you get into the major source, which is more like 18 months.
That's California.
It'd probably be worse in California, although we
Or
do
our
have
immersion tables in Salt Lake are horrible too.
Yes,
I'm sure
Salt Lake's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, we do have some plants in California that were successful in getting their emissions permits. So
in
that's
18 months.
I don't know about 18 months. I'm
Well,
not
Northern
sure
California
about
has
that.
a CEQA order, so it's
Yeah.
definitely going to take at least 13.
We just did one in Southern California in the LA market, so that's as hard as it gets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not as hard as Northern California.
Well, they're kind of in the ballpark.
yeah, for sure. California's a tough one.
Yeah.
So you guys, it's really what you put on for the emission standards is predicated on the volume and the size of the engine block or the power plant itself, and whatever the authority having jurisdiction requires you to do based on permit.
Yeah, so we custom design and custom manufacture all of the emissions control equipment that's on the back
Per
of
the
the
market.
engine, and that enables us to ensure that the engine is the engine performance is optimized as much as possible, and getting under those limitations, so we can maximize the amount of megawatts in the smallest amount of time, which is really what the customer's looking for.
So one of the things I've seen in turbines is derating those turbines based
Yeah.
on temperature. Do you
Yeah.
have that problem on the recip side with your engines?
Well, that's the next thing from emissions. We usually talk about what are the extreme conditions at the job site. We need to get that early, and those are generally going to be temperature, right, and
Especially
altitude.
Texas.
And altitude,
Yeah.
right? So let's say you're in Cheyenne or Salt Lake, 4,000 feet,
Yeah, I
4,800
boiled
feet.
fuel there on
Yeah.
engines and didn't know why before.
That's right. And so the derating of recip engines, the medium speeds that we have, we don't derate on altitude until about 4,000 or 5,000 feet, and then we don't derate much. We just did one. I think let's look at 6,000 feet. We might have derated a couple points, a couple percent. Then on temperature, that's the reason why, like down here at LCRA locally here, or places in Texas, they're in San Antonio, they're in Lubbock, Denton. We've got a couple 100-megawatt plants all over the place. It's hot down here, right? And that derates a turbine quite a bit, right? Double-digit percentage at these 100-degree temperatures, 110. We don't derate at all until
110.
10 degrees Fahrenheit. So you get full power at extreme conditions like altitude or at temperature with these recip engines where you derate. And what causes a problem is that increases your Capex, right? Because you need X amount of power. Let's say you need 100 megawatts.
You need the redundancy.
You
though,
need
so
extra
more.
turbines to
Yeah.
get to that 100, so that's more Capex that you wouldn't have to spend with the recip engines.
And I've seen this again and again, customers comparing turbine prices to engine prices, and, whatever comes out of that comes out of that. But they never, or very rarely seem to take into consideration what
Yappen.
Scott was talking about there, that you're going to see some serious deration, and therefore, because you can't say on a hot day, sorry, mate, can't provide you any power today, you might want to get a backup generator or something. You just can't say that, right? So you have to design the system for the hottest possible day that you can imagine, essentially. And then you've got to take into account that 30% deration that would often occur at, say, 110 degrees. And that's a huge amount of Capex, massive amounts of Capex. And it hits you on the OPEX because it increases the heat rate as well. So it's a
more
often
fuel.
overlooked factor. Yeah.
I think this is keep going, keep educating, right? So keep letting people know. Keep going.
And you know what? I think that early stage now, this first year of this massive explosion of on-site power, some of these things aren't as big of a decision factor as speed to market, right?
Right.
But I think as the market matures here in the next year, and the data centers they're starting to hire some independent power producers, professional power plant builders, right, who really get the economics of what you should be doing. Then all these things are going to start playing a role, and then going to increase Wärtsilä's look in the market because you don't derate. Your fuel efficiency is better, less cost on fuel. When you're taking a look at 10, 20 years of this, I've got a slide that said for every 100 megawatts of this engine versus that turbine, it's $10 million of fuel every year per 100 megawatts.
That's ridiculous. When I first
Yeah.
read that, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I only hear those statistics coming from recip engine providers. So I'm like, is that bullshit or is that, you know what I'm saying? I mean, like every time I talk to an engine person, they're like, let me tell you why recips suck on an OpEx basis.
Yeah.
And look, if you're all right, and it seems like the pattern is you're all right, then why do people still use turbines? Because they're just a bigger block?
I think it's where we're at in history of building power plants, right? And
Steady state.
people know turbines. The great advantage of turbine is power density. I can put a turbine here. Good example, one of the first ones that happened out in Virginia last year, they didn't have any space, right? Northern Virginia, nobody's got any space at their data center. So turbines can make sense when you have no space, right? But I can't think of a lot of other reasons why I can't give you a reason why it's better to, or at least equal to look at a recip engine than just space.
Well, let's talk about like the efficiencies that the benefit of load capacity or load carry for a turbine versus an engine, a recip. Like to get the most efficiency out of a turbine, what do I have to have it fully loaded up to more than 90% before you start seeing real strong efficiencies out of it? Is that about right?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, but even at 90% plus, you're still probably, it depends on the turbine, of course, but you're probably at about a high 30s, low 40s efficiency with Wärtsilä and other, should be clear, this is true for all medium speed engine technology. You're around the 50% mark. Now that's only a 10% difference, but I assure you that's tens of millions of dollars. That's huge amounts of money.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
You know, one thing to put a cap on the OpEx is that, remember we're talking about medium speed engines here, not high speed engines. So a lot of times you hear a fallacy in the market that the cost of maintenance of an engine is higher than a turbine. That's true if you're talking about high-speed engines like you see out there, the smaller 2-3 megawatt engines.
Like the diesels that are for backup.
Or if they were gas. And
Yeah.
they have
Even
gas,
if they're gas,
of
yeah.
those. So, but these medium-speed engines are right on par with turbines when it comes to maintenance, all the maintenance you need to do for a number of years, including overhauls and routine maintenance and so forth. You're going to be looking at very similar costs. And that's something that if folks start seeing, okay, the OpEx is the same, the Capex, well, these engines might have a little bit of advantage because of that D-rating thing we were talking about. And, oh, by the way, this performance on heat rate and fuel efficiency, that's what I'm saying. As the market matures, these are really business decision criteria that are going to be coming into play.
So what are you guys seeing? What are the type of questions you get from your customers right now? What's the pattern and theme that Wärtsilä is seeing in the industry with regards to power?
One thing that I'm hearing recently that I didn't hear before is water use. So they're interested, obviously, in how much the engines are using because they're getting so much attention from the community and various regulators as to, how much water is this data center going to use. And the answer to the question is these things drink less water than I do. It sounds ridiculous, but it's 1 gallon of water per engine per week. Because of the closed loop system, it's next to nothing. I'd outdrink a engine any day of the week. Yeah.
I think that we're seeing that across the board, the whole NIMBY backfire, or people pushing back on water. The mechanical permutations all shifted into such a hybrid now, require less water. In fact, there was one MEP I was talking to, and he goes, if we have to build a 50,000 square foot data hall, it requires just as much water as a Class A office space fully populated with people would. So I'm like, we're basically using, mineral fluids and dialectics and glycol systems, and we're using all kinds of other things in addition to water. Just like the same reason why we don't put water in our radiator in our car, right? Because it's just not simply enough to reject the heat, right? So we're gonna see improvements in that. But going back to you on water, what other patterns are you seeing? Are you seeing a pattern with regards to building block? Are you seeing people like your 10 to 20 meg gas engines on your shirt, but you're saying
Scale it, yeah.
So how do you scale it, right? Because the customers I've dealt with that talked about your blocks where it's great that the blocks are so big. It's bad because the blocks are so big. I have to take down 20 megs at one point to do maintenance on one block. Does that make sense? And are you seeing pushback from people on that versus like it's the same for a turbine, right? If you have to take a turbine down, that's a big ass block to take down at one point. So that's that what are people doing? What are the concerns you're seeing, and how are you overcoming those in the industry?
Yeah, you design for that, right? So this, Sean was mentioning earlier, the redundancy part of it. So let's say you needed
a 4 to make 3 or
200 megawatts or whatever.
Yeah.
So you might have
220
something
installed. Yeah,
exactly. And so you'll bring one up when one needs to come down.
Yeah.
Right? So that's okay. But
it's
I
like
think
a catcher system in case anything happens.
Yeah, but to your point, the size is about right. I think we're starting to see a desire to have that 10 to, and if you take the turbines too, I don't think you're seeing as many 50, 60 megawatt turbines as you're seeing lower than that,
30-60 rated to 30 is normal. What
Yeah,
we're seeing, right?
yeah.
So
I think
building blocks are 100 megs in a building right now. A AI data center is 100 megs, right? So
Right.
you're going to put how many of those engines there for a 100 megawatt block? A real world example.
Yeah, you could put 10 megawatt engines or 520s, right? That's kind of what you'd
Yeah.
be doing.
Yeah, plus your redundancy.
Plus your redundancy. Yeah.
And based on if it's Texas where real estate is not limited, then I could see it going smaller blocks, right? But in certain NFL cities where even like downtown Dallas, you're not going to see a lot of capacity for
Right.
those blocks. So I think that you're going to have a harder time, right? So what are you seeing in real world right now? Can you walk us through any configurations in which data center customers have come in and said, hey, look, this is what we want. It's all 100% behind the meter, but you have to design it in a way it could be closed transition back to the grid in 3 years from now if they want to do that. I don't know.
That's a great point. It's thinking more than just tomorrow, but 5 years
Yeah.
from now, because this bridge to utility is a possibility in most sites that we see. We also see people that they think this is a permanent solution off grid, right? We're starting to see that
if you
now.
could close transition, you could do frequency response on demand.
You
can turn
can.
those things. I mean, like the OpEx wise, you turn those on for frequency response once a month, and it pays for themselves.
And that is what I'm glad we're going to hire him for this.
Yeah.
Because it's
Well, we got to dream bigger though. But you keep going.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we start today where we're your primary source of power. We're running
Yeah.
24/7, right?
Yeah.
But tomorrow when the utility, if it does show up, then we're going to be in transition, close transition to the
You
grid.
can't keep up. Those nerds, you know what I'm saying? I got you.
Hit
Hey,
me.
you're not allowed
Hit
to.
me.
We need your big fat brain to talk about really smart shit right now.
I need your nerd shirt. You have a nerd shirt. I need that one.
I got
right?
you.
Yeah.
But listen, here's the deal. When I give those shirts out, they have to be cropped. So it's a tube top when I give it out.
Okay.
Good.
But I'll still give it to you if you want to wear it. Is
I'll
that
work
fair?
on the abs.
Let's go there.
I
Let's
got
go
you.
there. So the question is, what happens when you don't need me for 24/7 power? Do I still deliver some ROI in the future?
Yeah.
So there's 3 or 4 things that really deliver ROI that our engines are great at. Number one is you can use them for backup power, right? So you buy this engine plant, your design is going to lower your need for backup power on day one in the first place, and it can become backup power later. But then you can dispatch for grid opportunities we call grid services like peak shaving, coincident peaks, the voltage regulation sort of market that you kind of
That's
mentioned.
a bigger one.
Demand
Peak shaving's
response.
huge, but you'll find that more in like Phoenix and
Yeah.
markets where they're just getting their asses kicked in the summertime when everyone comes home from work and turns on the AC.
There's a
at
big
once.
market for it in Texas. We're getting a lot of orders in Texas.
Are you really?
Yeah.
But are they data center? It's not is it
yet.
utility?
Not yet, but on the brink. On the
Okay.
brink.
So I could see utility be, and you're not going to ever be able to satisfy the demand of utility probably. Look, the sky for the cloud, Northern Virginia. We all know that. The home for AI will be here in Texas. I think there's a lot of things that people don't understand, but in addition to a shit ton of real estate, I mean, I could go through high level, paint high level. We have 15 military bases in the state of Texas, which offers you, the military is a home of not only a leadership incubator, but some of the most advanced weapons, machinery, and technology ever built. So you have a labor force coming out of the military that have 15 military bases in the state of Texas. And some of them are huge. You have 116 higher education university platforms in the state of Texas. Not to mention we have more natural resources in the state than Montana and Alaska. We have 8.2% of the U.S. railway, which represents a shit ton of fiber, right? So we could connect the hub and spoke backbone using not just the NFL cities, but the secondary, tertiary markets now too, because we use the right-of-way of the railway lines to connect the internet, right? So you have a huge labor force. You have a massive geography of land. Oh, by the way, you have a Permian Basin that pulls out a ton of oil. Well, actually, they say they pull out a ton of water.
And water, yeah.
And every now and then they pull out some oil with it,
Yeah.
right? So it's throughout the basin right now, it's average of 4 to 5 barrels of water per 1 barrel of oil. There are some areas in the basin it's higher. It's like 10 or 11.
And gas comes out of that as well.
That's a byproduct
that folks are using for our plants.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so we have access to so much renewable energy. 27 gigs alone is spearheaded just in renewable on natural gas side. There's 45 gigs of renewables, but 27 gigs, or roughly 60% of that, is just on natural gas that's coming online. But that model was originally designed to get to 2030. Now everything I'm seeing is bringing it back to 2029, and now there's some market messages they're saying we'll be at 80 gigs. You're saying we're at 80 gigs globally. We're 40 gigs in the U.S., putting 10 gigs under construction right now, 7 gigs of that coming online. Of the 10 gigs being built, 93% of it is fully subscribed. It's already been sold. So we can't keep up with what the shit is we're building right now. We'll have 80 gigs in the United States before the end of 2029, right? So there's a huge demand for what you guys are doing. And I want to hear how you guys are going to be able to solve that problem in the state of Texas, because we'll be building AI platforms everywhere. But right now, Texas seems to be there's a triangle in the state of Texas between Orsla, Amarillo, and Abilene that seems to be the perfect spot. The only thing that's lacking is talent and labor, but we could build man camps and we could build, we're going to figure out how to solve for labor. That's not your guys'. That's what we do. Solving for the power out there is what you guys are going to have to solve for. So,
well, it's dry, it's hot. That has Wärtsilä written all over it, right?
Well, you guys started maritime, right? So that seems like it's wet as hell. But my thing is you guys have evolved quite a bit in 190 years or whatever Wärtsilä started as. But it's probably a fascinating story. I'm sure that there's a lot of amazing history to it. But
a couple things just to because you're rolling there and your good stuff there. Texas, just for example. So one thing we haven't mentioned is our headquarters in the U.S. is in Houston. Right.
Makes sense. The energy vertical, headquarters of the world.
And shipping too. But, we have sites in Virginia, California, BC, some different places. But Texas is the largest state for power gen for us.
Of course. Yeah. And it's only going to grow. Do you see how many? There are, everyone knows what Stargate is.
Yeah. But
what if you heard that there are other programs adjacent to that are just as big or bigger?
Yeah, it's coming.
And I'm sure you guys have seen those too, right? So the thing is it's incredible. We will build more data centers in Texas in the next 3 years than what we've done in Virginia in the last 20.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just because the AI product is completely different than a cloud product. And not to take anything away from everything we did in cloud, but imagine what we're going to, all of Northern Virginia, do you know how many gigs in Northern Virginia exist online today? 7 gigs in 20 plus years. Imagine what we're going to do out here in Texas. There's programs in the pipe that are 7 gigs alone.
Yeah.
And those programs will be 5 to 7 years, so we're not putting those online in 2 years.
But that's what a lot of people ask us is because they're these what you call tier 1 or the NFL cities or the data center tier 1s. With us being in 35 states for some large plants, we've got operations and maintenance all over the place, right? We've got people, and that's a big question. You brought it up earlier. It's like, who am I going to call?
Right.
Ghostbusters? No,
labor.
We're going to call Wärtsilä. So we have a very strong ability to support this utility scale power around the country, and it really feeds well into this boom for data centers.
Yeah, and Wärtsilä's position in the state that it has access to incredible amounts of raw talent. I'm telling you, you have 116 higher education platforms in the state of Texas. You're going to find talent, right? It's just a big state. Geography-wise, it's huge. Resource-wise, it's huge. Talent-wise, it's huge. And let's be honest, it's one of the states that is the most inviting for people to come build things. That's why it's not lost on any of us that Austin is the next Silicon Hill, right? That's what they think they call it in Silicon Valley, Silicon Hill, because a majority of those people that make those biggest purchasing decisions have already migrated out here because this state is very friendly to businesses that are trying to grow. And the more aggressive the growth, the less likely you are to live and function and thrive in a state that's heavily regulated like the state of California.
Look, I come from one as well, New Jersey. I completely understand that. It's interesting to think about what happens across the Delaware River in Pennsylvania versus what happens in New Jersey. Same kind of stuff. Open for, opportunity to power generate.
It's all about regulation. Yeah.
Not so much in one. But I think that there's always a time for change. I think these have to do with politics sometimes and different things that are going on out there. And also, like you mentioned, security. When people think about what's going on in other countries, are they beating us to the race? If so, do we need to goose it a little bit? Yeah, I think.
What's your? I mean, how do you feel we're doing on a power base?
I think we're going to have to catch up, right? Texas has 80 gigawatts. Today's going to be 100 degrees here. You're probably going to have 80 plus gigawatts on the grid, and you're probably about that much available.
Well, it's a sunny day too, so yeah, for that, right? Because we need some.
Yeah,
but
so
yeah,
we need
you're
more
right.
power. What we need is a marginal power. We need excess power because there's going to be times that cause a Uri or that cause a problem that you need to be planful of those things. As the old school power plants are kind of retiring, we talked about some nuclears are going out, some coals. We got to bring reliable power onto the grid, and we haven't done so much of that the last 10 or 20 years, and now we got to catch up.
So we're not bringing this one home, but bring me full circle on Wärtsilä, so the people that are listening, just to level set them. If you're just kind of tuning in, Wärtsilä's been around for more than 100 years. You guys have been building engines on marine ships, it sounds like, and anything that's industrial or commercial. And over the last few years, your clients have been mainly utilities, and you've discovered that the largest demand of dense energy coming from one source isn't just a utility provider anymore, it's an operator itself. So you guys are trying to align your business to be able to solve for that volume and velocity right now?
Yeah, definitely. And it's a bit of a learning curve as well, because obviously it's a very different industry. So we've had to learn as an organisation all of the different aspects. So, you mentioned...
It's not just a different industry, it's a different culture of industry.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'll tell you, it's really good that we've collided with you. Do you know why? Do you know what makes an industry mainstream? Ethics. Think about what do you think the primary vertical of industry is for economy, global economy? It's energy.
Yeah.
Every industrial revolution we've ever had has been predicated on a form or a value of energy. Steam engines, AC/DC power, automobile energy.
It was horsepower in the day.
Yeah.
It was, like you said, when the internal combustion engine happened, it changed the world. And I'll say this, we didn't know, I think it was Bill Kleiman or you or somebody that said, when we first discovered oil, I'm from near Kilgore, Texas, right?
Okay.
That's the first place they discovered oil
Right.
in Texas. And little fact is that Pennsylvania discovered it first, but we'll just keep it in Texas, all right? But we didn't know what we were going to do with that oil. And then all of a sudden this combustion engine came along and changed the world, right? Right now, AI,
we were only using
really
it
know
for
what we're going to
Atlanteans.
do. Yeah.
Oh, right.
What'd you do today on the way? Hey, Siri?
Oh, yeah. I told Siri to hook me up with ChatGPT because Siri doesn't know anything. So I thought we'll give ChatGPT a go, and I've automated that. So I'm pretty proud of myself.
Is Siri helping you?
We're trying to figure out how to use it, right? There's a quote for you, Satya Nadella, my favorite quote so far. He says, as AI gets more efficient and accessible, we will see its use skyrocket, turning it into a commodity we just can't get enough of.
It's a commodity today.
Yeah.
Cloud is a commodity, right? So
Yeah.
cloud is the fifth utility. The first utility that was ever introduced to a home was plumbing. The second was electricity. Do you know how long it took before electricity was adopted by 1 in 4 Americans from the time it was adopted?
37 years.
That's about right.
We listen to you.
It's 46. It's 46, but close. But you get it. It's a shit ton of why does it take that long? I mean, there are parts of Pennsylvania that probably still don't have it, So, I mean, there are parts of the country that we're not as stuck in the Stone Age as some countries, but there's some places in the United States that are very much against innovation, right? So, but it took that long, 46 years. It took 27 years before a phone line, which was the third utility. The fourth was gas. If you add those 4 utilities up on a commercial basis, you have a data center, and that's the fifth utility, which we sell today as cloud, but AI is now a utility that's emerging. I don't agree with him because we don't have enough power. I see the demand of AI actually has the ability to shift us back to the cellular level, meaning we used cellular minutes instead of data. Remember those days? Remember the early mobile phones?
Yeah.
These weren't
Expensive.
smartphones where we're using data and apps. And so we were like, oh shit, I don't know how many minutes I've used, but if you go over by a minute, they charge you $3 a minute or some shit. Remember,
It's like an electric bill in Texas. We're going to get a big bill. Look out.
well, the problem with selling 1 minute, it was only 1 minute, where with data, there was an unlimited amount of data. We had no limit to what we could do. Now we're like, AI is showing us what the limit is. AI is like, you might want to save some of that power for us, because what AI, I mean, Bill Kleiman was the one that was on stage at DCAC like 3 years ago and was like, for every time that someone does a ChatGPT question, it's the equivalency of charging your phone from 0 to 160 times, and it requires a 16-ounce bottle of water to reject that much heat. So imagine, well, you guys are seeing it now. The amount of power that we're building. I think it was really incredible. I did a podcast with Christian Bellotti. If you'd never heard of him, he wrote the PUE formula, right? And he actually talks on the podcast, this plane ride back from Japan, and how he was trying to understand that. So imagine we're using energy for data center growth. And at the same time, some dude comes in and says, well, why don't we try to put together a calculation that lets us get it more efficient, the PUE. And that math made it to where we continue to grow, but we were going from a 4.0 to a 3.0 to a 2.1, and the goal was to get to a unity power factor, right? So we were getting less wasteful and more efficient in the way that we operated data centers. And we were self-regulating that. Dean Nelson did Infrastructure Masons, which was the governance. I mean, Uptime started something, DCD got into it.
Yeah.
What diluted all those, like DCD, was the award shows they started doing where people started taking them less serious on, education and standardization. And they were great at that. Uptime was great at that. But Infrastructure Masons really brought in a voice for the industry to say, let's self-regulate before government comes in. Because the best part about you on the energy vertical in Houston merging with data centers is we are the wild, wild west. We are the automotive industry 100 years ago. Yeah. Non-emerging. We work right now with the Henry Fords of our industry. That's how new this industry is. You guys have been around forever. You have regulation, you have governance, most importantly, you have ethics. And ours is an industry that has none of those things. When the car industry went around, 100 years ago, when cars were being built, there wasn't even rules of the road. You didn't need a license. There was no place to go get service parts. There was no guarantee that there would be service stations to give you gas.
Like EVs, right? They don't necessarily have all of the charging facilities.
Does that make sense? But we always sell ahead of the curve. Yeah. It's every piece of technology is Goldilocks. Too hot, too cold before just right. You guys, the energy vertical is merging with ours. And you guys are pulling, because we need so much of you, you're pulling us into the mainstream. We're now, have you guys got on the news, regular mainstream news, as dopey as it is? Have you ever heard them talk about data centers?
Starting to.
See what I'm saying? Cloud was a term that every person regurgitated.
And they're talking about the energy that is needed, right? Yeah. That's kind of when I see it. And you mentioned PUE and so forth. We'd be remiss without thinking about what's around the next corner, right? Yeah. So now we have on-site power, right? We're not getting it from the copper coming from the utility. It's a plant sitting there. What is the advantage of that? There's waste heat there from these engines or turbines or whatever that can be converted into cooling, right? So we can be much more efficient about our energy for power and cooling in a data center to drop the PUE to 1.1, 1.2 easy if we can do it that way, because you'd run this waste heat from the exhaust of an engine and the cooling loop of like your radiator loop in your car, right? And you convert it with an absorption chiller into cooling. And we're working with some of the CDU type folks out there.
Yeah, that's emerging too. That's going to be huge.
To bring that to the chip.
I agree, that'll be huge.
Yeah, and cool the chip.
That's the future. I think there's also going to be some shifts to 800 volts DC. I think that you're going to see Wade Vincent on Wednesday talking about the 1 megawatt racks that are coming, right? So there's
Wade and I have talked about what I just said about the use of looking at power and cooling, and that's something we're really excited about with on-site power, because you can use it for cooling as well.
I know. I met a guy at PTC last year, and when he told me that, I was like, hold on, why are you the best kept secret in this industry? That's the best part, is we're becoming better experts on energy. The data center industry was not about energy. It was about 4 walls and a roof, and then they would hire someone to be their energy brain. Be like, I'm going to go write a PPA, or I'm going to go negotiate with whoever. Right. Now we're on island mode, behind the meter, doing a lot of shit. And what I was saying is, when we had the PUE, when you look at the U.S. demand of energy, it was pretty flat for the first 12, 15 years, because right when we started spiking after the Internet of Things became more prevalent, the PUE was invented or rolled out and widely adopted by everybody. So you saw the PUE was designed and sold in a way in which it reduces your operating expenses, which it does. So why don't you pay a lot of attention on that? At the same time, we were spiking on energy demand, but it looked more flatlined because efficiencies were driving it. Mm-hmm. So that's why it looked steady. And that's why you look at everything, and everything you see now goes, okay, cool. So we're 3% of the total demand of utility data centers. Yeah. Okay, now we'll be at 9 to 10 to 12% in the next 3 years. data centers are the new utility provider.
Sure.
So AI is a utility. Data centers are the provider of data. I mean, we are creating.
And I'm
a
looking
new
forward
utility.
to the data center world's saying less of, well, we'll just pass along these energy inefficiencies to the customer, right? They'll pay for it because it's value. What they're getting is value. Well, why not make it less expensive and be more efficient with your energy in the first place?
I'll tell you why. Because the product is not less efficient and more. Like, if you guys think that the data center industry is looking for more reliable and more efficient, 1997 called it, they want their strategy back, right?
Yeah.
We are about volume and velocity. The only product we sell today is speed, and the only KPI is safety. Cost is not what moves the needle today.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Safety is number one and number two. You know what I'm saying? Like, they'll tell you safety, then schedule, then budget. Safety, like 1/3 of the labor I provide to this, I mean, it's the 15th of the month. I've hired 30 people this month. More than half of them will probably be in safety. Safety is that prevalent right now. I mean, construction management, project management is huge, but safety is what stops a project. And schedule and volume and velocity is all we sell.
Couldn't
now.
agree with you more, especially in our business. That's all we start with. And I wish we would have talked about it more today, but it is
I'm sure
forefront of for us. So.
Well, no, this is like, first of all, this is the first time that we're sitting down having this conversation. It's the first time that we talked, but this is the first time that we're doing this. And it's the first time I had you guys on, but I want people to know more about Wärtsilä. Like, what is the sweet spot for you? You guys stumbled in here just with a big, huge resume of building shit tons of utility. And now you're trying to coach data center operators on how to make purchasing decisions similar to a utility provider, and they're going to look at it through a different set of optics, right? Because they have different demands, right? Their shareholders or their clients are different. Some operators, their only customers are their shareholders. For some operators, their customers still walk through the front door and have their IT in it, right? So there's data centers, but data centers is like saying, hey, Google's a customer. Well, Google's not a customer. There's 15 different businesses at Google. Maybe one of them is a customer. Does that make sense? There's such a massive and diverse industry that we have to really start tying these things together. The best thing that happened to this industry and what's pulling our industry into the mainstream to where it's now prevalent, it's people are talking about it on the news. Data centers are on the news. Well, what that means is kids that are nerds, that are digital pioneers that grew up with social media in their hands, that have never known a world without this type of technology, are going to start seeing it. It's not only that of a product that they find value in as a consumer, but it'll be where they could go park their career and grow a career, right? And where those careers don't even require college degrees. Those are middle-class jobs that will pay you just as much as or more than most college degrees can today, because a craftsman type skill set that's so specialized within a niche. Like, I can tell you this, there's people that I met that were Maybach mechanics that never went to college a day in their life. They made $250,000 a year because they knew how to use their hands to work on expensive cars. These are just really high-end expensive cars, and anybody that could learn how to work on them as a builder or an operator, they don't need to go to college for it.
You know, it's when the data center market is asking us more and more to operate our own plants.
Yes.
Right? And
that's why I'm like, I'm sure
these types of
huge
people,
demand.
we need electricians, we need mechanics, we need controls operators, just down to the person who manages the spare parts, you know. But there's a lot of people that are needed to operate these, we call them energy
Would
centers.
you guys do that
next
and
to
compete
data
against
center.
your customers? That doesn't make sense.
Do what?
Compete against your customers by becoming a utility yourselves?
Oh, no, we won't be going.
That's not what I meant.
was
It's
not-
just an on-site power plant, but somebody's got to operate it.
For sure.
And when we sell it to utilities, most of the time they'll operate their own almost all the time.
Operate, not own.
Yeah.
But now
Big
people are coming
difference.
and be like, I want to buy your engines, but can you operate them for us?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because they need somebody to do that.
People come to us to operate their engines, and I'm like, man, that's not what we do either. I'll build the power plant for you,
Yeah.
but we're not the
We can
operators.
certainly train your guys to do so, though.
Yeah.
we can
Look,
into
I would
that.
tell you this. We're talking to a shop right now that they had thought about selling their entire labor force to us and then getting it back as a staff augmentation, because the volatility of the labor market's tough, right? I mean, if you're in the business of making the best engine, like if you want to be truly great, one of my mentors is a guy named Chris Crosby, and I don't know if you know him, but he
Compass, is it?
yeah, he is Compass.
Yeah.
I look at him differently than I do most CEOs, most operators, and I'll tell you why. This industry is in its infancy. And when I'm still new to this industry. I've only been in it since 2000, but I remember vividly sitting at conferences where that guy would just, not stand in front of a podium, sit on a chair or a desk and just start talking about Henry Ford, or, he would really start talking about the things that were changing. And this industry started a long time ago. If you look at most of those pioneers and those luminaries and those captains of industry that started this industry, where are they? They're in finance now. Now, I'm not saying we need them in finance, because the only way to get more volume and velocity into this industry is to bring in more capital into the industry to deploy so we could scale faster.
Right.
Who is better than the founding pioneers and the finding luminaries of this industry to go unkink those hoses? Because there's trillions of dollars in the capital markets right now that are begging to deploy it in this space.
It's everywhere.
Which lends itself to you. You guys need them to get access to that capital so they can make a purchasing decision and give you a PO.
You should see the deal structures of these deals. Who's the customer? Who are we Who's
So
our counterparty? This guy, that guy, or
So
the data
complicated.
center? We always have to figure that out, because there's different permutations of all these deals.
But what I'm saying is, there's no company I think that's had a greater impact on this industry than Digital Realty Trust. And I just had the founders of CyrusOne and Digital on this podcast that just came out last week. But most of those guys, it's a tough game, man. This is a tough game. And a lot of them have moved on, and their best way to help this support the growth of this industry was on the finance side. Let's get more money into this space so we could grow more of this stuff. But there's guys like Crosby that have been sitting in the trenches with us since the birth of this industry. And he's still there. And not only that, but he's massively relevant still. What they're doing at Compass, a long time ago, I listened to Chris 10, 15 years ago before this talk about how we would one day transform the data center industry into the automobile industry in the way that we manufacture things in a static environment with a higher level of QA/QC, and we will roll it out to the field and assemble it like Legos. You guys do that with your engines, right? I mean, your engines could be assembled like Legos, just like the data centers can, right?
And they are.
Yep.
They are.
Yep.
They're
Scalable,
They're just 400-ton
plus.
Legos.
Yeah.
That's all.
We're moving so fast in this industry, you're all going to have a problem. You'll have a problem.
What are the two things? Speed and?
Volume and velocity are the only two
Okay,
things. we
volume
see.
and velocity. All
Lots
right.
of it, and as
We can
fast
do
as
that.
we can get it.
And liquor. There we go.
I want to rewind to something that he said a second ago.
It was nerdy.
Which is cogen and export into the grid. And the reason is, this is a bit of a segue, unfortunately, but I play doubles tennis on the
Is that a
every
thing?
now and again.
Is that a thing?
It is. Yeah.
Guys do that?
You remember
Pickleball, doubles. Yeah.
Patty McEnroe? Come on.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
All right.
You'd know the Woodies, Woodbridge and Woodford from South Australia, where I'm from. Anyway, moving right along. So we've got a bit of a chat associated, like on WhatsApp, chat associated with this doubles tennis that we play. And one of my friends the other day who's involved in heat exchanging products, he said to me, do not go off of that podcast without mentioning cogen that you did before and the ability to export power, because
Why didn't you talk about it then, dude? Why did you have to let us talk about it?
I know. I'm disappointed in myself, as I regularly
Better late
am.
than never.
I know. Come on.
So my point is here that this really is the future, and I've got a question for you. Why do you think it's a bit out of nowhere, bit left field, but why do you think that more data centers haven't picked up on the cogen opportunity? In other words, using the waste heat. Because the Marathon Hotline, which is the name of that group chat, tells me that that's where the future should be for data center power.
No, it's a good question. I tell you, everything is cyclical, right? So the beauty about this industry is if you don't like what the primary driver of the industry is today, just wait till tomorrow because it'll change, right? So I think that the reason why certain things haven't been adopted more mainstream is because the herd mentality. I was going through a lot of diffusion innovation. There are people that are going to stand around and they're just waiting for the first one to jump in, and there's the first 7 out of 100 are the ones that are going to be the ones that take the greatest risk. And right now, what you're seeing is you're just not seeing that adoption rate emerge yet. You will, just like everything that we're at right now, there was a first mover to it. And the first one through the wall is the bloodiest, right? And anything we do. But once they get through it, I mean, that's what a leader is. That's what a pioneer does, is they're the first ones. What makes them a pioneer is being able to survive those setbacks that come along with it. That's why I admire, there's a few people in this industry that have been in the trenches since day one that are still massively relevant, and I have a ton of credit and respect for them because, like, man, can you imagine being a CEO when this industry started a year, 5, 10, 20 years ago as an operator, and can you imagine being a CEO of an operator today? not even quite the same. Talk about white knuckling it through none of those guys. I had these two big fat brains here that have had more impact in this industry globally than anybody. And even they were like, there's no way we anticipated what we're going to be dealing with today is what we're dealing with. So the answer to your question is, this industry does not lack genius or intelligence. It's everywhere. You're smart. You can tell you got a brain. It does lack leadership, and it does lack courage. And there's a lot of people that are going to wait. They're not going to be the first to move on those things because risk is a 4-letter word. And it just means that a lot of people are waiting for someone else to follow first. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. I think what you're describing there is somewhat psychological.
It is.
Right? They've gone for so long simply signing PPAs to get power from the grid. Now suddenly they've got a necessity to have on-site power, and that's no small project. This is a huge, huge undertaking.
Do you understand what they're selling, though, the operators? Do you understand what they really sell? 100% uptime to an SLA. How many nines do you get with your
Right.
even with your engines on a block redundant instead of a distributor? You're still going to get me do? I mean,
Right.
like, how much does it take? So these people have to go out and sell reliability. The product that we are delivering is volume and velocity. They still have to have that without compromising
100%.
the integrity of the design. So if trapping farts is going to reduce costs and OPEX, and it costs me, does that make sense? But if it takes me this much time, if it takes 1 ounce of attention away from the reliability along the way I'm doing it, you have to remember they're not playing, they're 4-dimensional chess. They have shareholders, they have teams with cultures, they have clients that come in and pay for them to perform and with liquidated damages and a gun to their head if they don't. And then they have an entire ecosystem that wants to introduce them to something else that, hey man, this may be better for you. And you're like, you don't know what's better for me. You don't know. Every one of these operators, I could promise you Vantage and Compass and QTS and you name them, they could not be more different than the other. Although they all sell one thing, and that's to an SLA with 100% uptime, they cannot have a different, each one of them has a completely different offering.
I think you've touched on the other angle of that, which is a concern around availability should you involve cogeneration. Because if an engine goes down, then theoretically your chiller goes down, and therefore you don't have the cooling
thermal
aspect.
runaway, yeah.
But that's overcome theoretically again by maintaining the electric chillers that you would have in your standard design, using them as backup, and using the absorption chillers that you would have using the waste heat from the Wärtsilä engines as your primary source.
Do you know who? I'm with you. I think that is the future. I think you know how you get to that future. The enterprise. It won't be the operators. They still have the primary line of business they use to generate revenue is space, power, and cooling with connectivity. 100% uptime.
They're the ones that didn't adapt electricity for how many years back? Yeah,
But you know who is the first to go through that wall and test shit? I mean, did you guys not see Meta's talking about building tent cities to build data centers and shit? Like, they can. They're their own customer.
And why do they do that?
So you need to go talk to those types of groups that are like, how come you're not recycling all these things? Because do you know what a data center is to a large enterprise end user? It's a cost center. That's not what they use to generate revenue. Marketing or advertising. So you go from a profit center data center, which is owned by an operator, to a cost center data center that's owned by an enterprise person. And those people are going to be the ones that are going to look at the things that you're talking about. They're more focused on reliability because that hits their OPEX bottom line. They're more focused on efficiency because of that. Everyone else that's an operator wants those things as long as it doesn't compromise my reliability and my agility to deliver more for you, because the product that my client demands today is volume and velocity. And that means I need to have diversification in my supply chain and my design. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Let's take this one home, because this was a good way to humanize Wärtsilä for us. I mean, for me personally, I get to speak to a lot of cool people in this space, but this has actually been a lot more revealing for me. And I think that there's going to be, I think a lot of people are going to know more about Wärtsilä than you may think, because they do go, I mean, you guys talk about your products and stuff, but I think it's also really important, the social dynamic and chemistry of what Wärtsilä is. And that's the humans that are involved with the delivery of the product. I hope that the people that have listened to you guys talk realize that you're just a couple misfit toys like the rest of us, but you're guys that can go do your shit, right? And I think that people do business with people they like. You know, I mean, look, even in what I do, I don't do anything very special. There's a lot of people that do the same things that we do. The difference is what kind of urgency and attention I'm going to give them when shit hits the fan, because You think that dealing with engines is dangerous and kinetic? Deal with humans. They're more dangerous than humans. I mean, than anything else. More dangerous than any element of the power I've had to deal with was. If I told you stories about the problems I've had with people versus the problems I've had with engines, I'd rather work on engines all day long, right? Yeah. Turns out every person is different. They all think differently. There's no silver bullet in how you're going to manage them, right? So it's been incredible to learn how to grow and scale a business with humans. I can't imagine how hard it is with a product, like a superior product. I think that you guys have an incredible product. I think that you guys have one of the best products in the market. The disparity between your product and me was I didn't know enough about the people at that business, and I didn't have the time to invest into understanding how I could get that more integrated into programs that we do with our clients, because I need reliable. You could have the best product, and you probably won't say it, but I bet you that your lead times are 30 to 40% faster than a turbine. Is that about right?
Oh, more.
Oh, we'll say it.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I mean, turbines are out to 7 years. We're out, depending on the engine, 1.5, 2 years.
You're a 1.5 to 2 year engine burst?
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, in one engine category, we're only half a year.
Okay. So yeah. I thought I saw some writings that are like 8 to 10 months for some of your guys' engine capacities, right? So, but either way, everything that revolves around an engine has typically a very long lead time. You guys have a product that is strong. You have a lead time that's strong. I think now the only benefit that I could offer you is the ability to expose you to a larger audience of listeners that we have, so they understand that it's not a product that they're dealing with, and it's not a company that they're dealing with. It's you, and it's you for right now, or the people that are in your orbit that you're dealing with at Wärtsilä. And now I feel more comfortable engaging with you guys now knowing where to start, because I didn't know where to begin. I'd be like, I don't have time to go through this shit. I have clients that have deadlines. I don't have time to go re-educate myself on all this product right now. So I'm going to use the shit I know, and I'm going to push that because I know it's reliable. The more that we can know about you guys and we know about the reliability of it, the more it gets rolled into the fold and gets advanced with the rest of us.
One of the greatest things about this business is we'll take a call from. So I was helping closing a deal in Manhattan, Central Park South, at Quality Italian Restaurant the other day.
Nice.
With a bottle of red and a chicken parm. And tomorrow it's going to be with brisket and a Shiner Bock.
That's right.
Right, and you got to be able to blend in like a chameleon and work and talk to Australian guys like this and you and whatever and,
sure.
and cheers, right? Do
Cheers.
what we're doing right here and make it work.
Pump hot.
Yeah.
Well, listen, how about this time next year we sit down again with the Wärtsilä team, if not sooner, and we talk about how you guys are moving the needle in the industry. Does that work?
Yeah, we can talk about specific projects, and hopefully at that point we're also looking at projects that are exporting power, like Scott mentioned before. I think that's going to be a really big evolution or revolution associated with data center power projects, exporting to the grid, because I think as well as anyone else that they're getting a lot of pressure from the utilities, or not as much help, maybe is a better way to describe it, from the utilities as they could be. And one way to do that is to offer the power, the excess power that they have, and exporting to the grid. I think that's a huge opportunity that these data centers have with their on-site power production. And Wärtsilä is an ideal technology to be exporting to the grid because of all of the renewable integration that I was talking about before.
I got it. I like it. Well, listen, I'm going to ask, let's bring it home then. I want to ask you guys both a couple questions. Last couple questions I typically try to ask people. I'll give you a heads up on those questions. One will be, what do you want people to know about Wärtsilä that I didn't ask you yet? And I want you both to think about that for a second, because this is just an organic conversation. I had some talking points, but you guys dumped out most of the things that I wanted to talk about anyway, so we just kind of took it naturally. And I want people to understand how to engage with you. So 2 questions that I'm going to have you both answer would be, what do you want them to know about Wärtsilä that you haven't heard yet, or what you haven't said yet? And then lastly, I want to know what you tell people you do for a living, specifically in this industry, right? So which one of you is smarter and wants to go first?
Well, I'll start. I'll tell you what my daughters tell their friends. What does my daddy do? Right? I have twins that are 19 in college now, but what they used to say is, my daddy talks to people, plays golf, and does lunch. I try to tell them, no, it's a little more than that, right? Making deals in the power business. But I want people to know that Wärtsilä is good people. One thing I like about us is our culture and being able to work together and not compete against each other internally and step on each other's toes. That's a big deal to me, right? We're busy. It's great. We're at a massive growth opportunity, and it's happening right now. And like Sean says, we can deliver pretty fast. So bottom line is, if you're looking at turbines and you're looking at other engines, you should be looking at Wärtsilä. That's what I want them to know.
Cool. Very good. How about you?
Well, when you're talking to ChatGPT and you see that big dot going like this, trying to think of what it's going to say, I'm the guy that makes it go a bit quicker.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, what are your guys' building blocks? So when people are listening, they understand you go through 10 to 20 megs. Is that what they are?
10 to 20 megawatt natural gas engines is where we're at, and Sean.Hughes@wärtsilä.com.
How do they reach you?
Yeah, Scott.Yappen, Yappen at Wärtsilä.com. And I'll say this, the last press release we had for a project for data center in Ohio said 15 18.8 megawatt engines at 282 megawatts.
I saw
beginning delivery in 2026.
It's fantastic, man. So this is great. So if people can't get a hold of Sean and Scott, they could reach out to one of us. I'll make sure that Will, when he puts the website out or puts the podcast up, that there's some stuff that he puts on the bottom that has your guys' handles and stuff like that. So make sure you get that, Will. But this has been great, and I appreciate you guys making the time to come in. I know it's a busy week. DCAC week's a busy one for all of us, right? But energy is at the forefront of everything we're doing. 1/3 of the I don't run the conference. I will literally walk into the conference for the first time and see it, just like you guys will for the first time. I'm aware of some of the speakers, but not all of them. Right? I've been involved with all this stuff. I've turned this entire conference over to a millennial with an army of Gen Zers that are appropriate to run this conference because they're representing the future of this industry, right? So I want them to help lead this stuff, and I think this conference is going to have an opportunity to allow for a greater exchange of ideas and a greater conversation that takes place. So since you guys haven't come, I welcome you guys to DCAC as one of the hosts, and I'm really, really grateful to bring your guys' story onto Data Center Revolution. I hope that people get a chance to sit down and they know they've all known who Wärtsilä is. We all do to some extent, but this is the first time that hopefully they get a chance to understand the dudes that are really behind it, that are helping spearhead the market in the data center side. So I appreciate you making the trip.
Appreciate it, mate. And,
yeah, man.
Shout out to all of those energy as a service providers as well that are utilising our technology. I'd failed to
Every
mention
one of them has mentioned your name.
Yep.
So every
I know
time
that Jamie Smith, for example, came on your show, I believe it was, and he mentioned you at R Power, now known as Stellar Power. So they're a great help as well.
That's great. I'm glad that helped you guys.
Hey, I want to thank you and Overwatch for doing what you're doing as well.
Man.
Keep it going.
Well, listen, I appreciate it, man. This is the People's Conference, so this is not our conference, and at some point, this is the People's Podcast. We get a lot of requests of people that want to hear or learn more about things, and we try to target those products and those topics on this podcast. So thanks for coming on, and thanks for joining the revolution, guys. Cheers.
Thanks for the bourbon.
Yes.
Beauty.
This is lunch.
Nice.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.